Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold8. I've been using it over the past 2 weeks, really enjoying it, but I wanted to go over the good and the bad. Generally the experience is positive, but there are some negative things as well. Let's start off with the good though. The first thing is the form factor. This all-new form factor I find to be very comfortable. While it is a little bit wider and a little bit shorter, it makes it great to fit in your pocket or a bag, and just holding on to it makes it feel substantial. It's definitely a little bit smaller than the previous one with the Z Fold 7 here, so a little bit shorter and basically a little wider. And being that it's a little wider, it makes this a little difficult as far as one-handed use. Typically you need to use two hands, but that's not usually that much of an issue. But unless you have huge hands like me, it's not easy to reach completely across the display. In fact, I'd have to scoot it up and down just to go into notifications, things like that. So it does make it a little bit more cumbersome to use that way if you're looking for a one-handed phone, but generally the form factor is quite nice. You'll see here it's quite thin as well compared to the Z Fold 7. Very similar in size, not too much of a difference there. And I find it, again, not too thick to maybe throw in a pocket, anything like that. If you put a case on it, it really doesn't feel too bulky other than that it has a little bit of added weight because it's a folding phone with additional hardware here. But generally, I find it very comfortable with the exception of maybe these sharper corners. I like how they've rounded them off, but I do find that they do push into your palm a little bit if you're using it without a case. So just keep that in mind, especially on this corner where the hinge is. But generally, the form factor is nice, it feels durable, no real issues as far as that goes. Of course, I do like one thing here, especially when you're typing on the keyboard, you have this wider keyboard. It makes it more comfortable to use, especially just typing two hands like I always do anyway, and I find it much better to use that way since we have a little extra real estate compared to what we had with the Z Fold 7, for example. So I really enjoy this form factor and find it to be great for doing things such as watching videos and more. Now, it is a bit odd at first. The outer display is far more usable, I think, given that it has this wider display going into things, whether that's weather, going into different apps, your app drawer. I just find the experience to be a little bit better. But again, it does take some time to get used to. When it comes to the crease, let's go ahead and open it up here. The crease definitely has gotten worse since I first opened it, but it's not really bad to the point where you notice it when you're watching different content. So you'll see here's the crease. Let me compare it to the previous generation here. So we'll just open up the Z Fold 7 and you'll see it's much more severe. So the crease overall is definitely different. Again, when the screen is on, you don't notice it that much, but there's definitely a more deep crease in the previous version compared to the new one. So they've done a good job here along with the reflective coating. That's another positive thing here. It's not a huge improvement, but it's definitely an improvement in certain lighting. You can see here, if I bring them again side by side, it improves it quite a bit, but not as much as the S26 Ultra, for example, or the S25 Ultra. So those have better anti-reflective coatings, but this is quite good. There is no anti-reflective coating on the outer display though. So just keep that in mind. You may want to get a screen protector for that. The display is nice and bright. The colors are great. It goes up to 3000 nits on both displays. You'll see everything's vibrant. In fact, I have this set to vibrant. So if we go into our settings, go down to display here, we have the brightness down a little bit, and then the mode is vibrant or vivid. So if we go to natural, of course, it dims a little bit, but that's just a preference thing where we could change the white balance and more. I have everything set to standard for the most part, and the display looks great. So using this regularly, again, you can see the crease, but if maybe we go into YouTube and open a video. Now within a video, you can notice the crease in bright light. Right now we're in a studio lighting environment and you can see the crease on the top and the bottom. But if I turn the light off, maybe you're sitting in a darker room, those creases disappear because they're not reflecting light or anything. So you really don't see it at all in typical lighting. It's just when maybe you're outside or in very bright lights that you notice the crease a little bit more. Still, they haven't perfected this to where it completely disappears, but it's definitely much better than it was in previous generation. When it comes to the durability, it seems to be very durable. Of course, we have armor aluminum here, and if I flex this backwards, I don't feel like I'm going to break it. Now, if I forced it, of course, I would break it, and we'll see some durability tests from others, I would think, but at this point, it feels very durable. Closing it hard, like that, I've had no issues. It seems like it's a very durable device. I've had no issues whatsoever using it. It's nice and easy to open up as well. They've really incorporated a nice design here where it's chamfered down in here to make it easier to open than the previous year. The last one was definitely a lot harder to open than this, but durability wise, it feels like it's strong. We don't have a ton of flex here. And if you're careful with your devices, I think you'll have no issue with this. The bigger concern would basically be the display inside. So of course you could dent it with your finger, with your nail, or something sharp, or if you left something in it when you closed it. However, it seems to be very durable for me so far, and even the feel across the crease seems to have been improved. So you can feel it a little bit if you push, but if you go lightly across it, you don't feel it at all. So the overall design and durability seems to be quite good. Another positive thing using this is the performance. It's generally very smooth. I've really had no issues with it whatsoever. If we go back into YouTube, maybe we're playing this video, let me bring the volume down. Playing this video, we'll just scroll up here. If we're using it like this, we'll go to Samsung, scroll through a different page. You'll see everything's nice and fluid and fast. So there's occasional stutter from time to time when a page is loading, but the general experience is nice and fast. Moving something around, bringing something in, multitasking, whatever you're doing seems to feel very, very fast all of the time. I've actually found this to be smoother than an iPhone, for example, that I typically use, and just going into different applications, they load fast. If we go into the camera, it's nice and fast, so you shouldn't miss any photos or anything like that. I've been very impressed with the performance. Also, to go along with performance, I did run Geekbench 7 just to see how it compares, and I was actually pretty impressed. So if we go into history here, you'll see I had 3,078 for single core, 10,353 for multi-core. That's quite fast. Pretty fast in general, and if we take a look compared to the 17 Pro Max, the highest scores I've seen with the 17 Pro Max is 3,102 and then 8,427. That's for multi-core, again on Geekbench 7 where some of the scores have changed. So we're definitely seeing some great performance here with the Z Fold 8, and I'm really happy with the overall performance of it. No real issues to complain of there. And that brings me to battery life as well. So not only is One UI 9 very smooth and fluid, but the actual battery life has been pretty impressive. I used it heavily yesterday watching a lot of video and found that the actual battery is about 6.5 to 7 hours. So if we go here, it has great standby battery, but you'll see here so far, well, daily usage now is not that much, but if we go back a day, and if we take a look at my use yesterday, that's when I used it quite a bit. You'll see if we go into Thursday, 2 hours and 32 minutes of screen on time, using about 35 to 40% of the battery. So I've found about 6.5 to 7 hours, and I'm seeing others seeing that as well. I purposely did not charge it last night. I'm down to 33%, and I found standby to be very impressive. So you could leave this for days. It dropped about 2 to 3% overnight. So it's really holding up well that way. And of course, you can charge it a little bit faster this time with 45 watt fast charging and 20 watt wireless. Now using wireless, it's easy to use a case to use wireless because you have this case from Samsung that allows you to use it with MagSafe accessories. So if we place it on here like this, now if we bring it onto this Belkin charger, we can just click it in place, it starts to charge, and we'll charge in 1 hour and 20 minutes off of this MagSafe charger. Now of course you don't have to use that. If we remove it, there's no real issues here. It's a little bit tough to remove this case. So there we go. If we remove it, set it on here, it doesn't align as precisely, so it may take a little bit longer. But of course, charging it this way is fine, or if you plug it in, it's going to be much faster. So really no issues with charging. I've been pretty impressed with it. Battery life is lasting me throughout the day, and I found it just to be very consistent as far as the usability, speed, and fluidity. It does have a 4,800 milliamp hour battery, again, that gets me through the day with no issues. Now, when it comes to the cameras included are 50 megapixels. So we have an ultra wide and a regular wide. We do not have a telephoto zoom camera. So generally they're pretty good. You can see some photos I took while in New York City at the Samsung event here. Of course, zooming in, you'll have to use digital zoom, and generally it's quite good. But again, it's not going to be as good as a dedicated telephoto zoom camera like you have on the Z Fold Ultra. So with the Z Fold 8 Ultra, you have that dedicated camera. You can see here where that's one of the differences between the two other than the form factor. So if you need that telephoto zoom camera, that may be a consideration. But really for me, it's not that big of a deal. I don't really miss it as I don't typically use zoom, but I know a lot of people do. But you do have ultra wide. Because of ultra wide, you have things such as macro. So that's always nice, having macro. And then of course you can record up to 8K if you want to go into video. You can then go into 8K if you want that, or you can do 4K 60, and video looks pretty good as well. Autofocus works well. No real issues there. And of course, you could use it regularly all the time without any issue. Given that it's 50 megapixels, you can then, of course, punch into those photos for that zoom. But again, it's not quite what you would expect compared to what you would have with maybe an S26 Ultra. One of the other nice features here is this dual recording. So if we go in here, will slide up. Then we've got this mode here where we can select side by side and use the back and front camera at the exact same time. So if maybe you want to use this for an interview, something like that, maybe you just want to talk to someone, show them what you're looking at, you have these additional options where you can change it built in with this display, and of course just switch between whatever you'd like. You have some of the similar recording modes you've had before, or you could just turn it off. But I really like that they've included that, and of course you can record either direction, so if you want widescreen, and it seems to work fine. But one of the bad things, like I mentioned, is there's no telephoto zoom lens. So that's our first bad thing. The next thing is not that big of a deal, but if we place it on a table, it wobbles quite bad. So if maybe you want to go into Chrome here, if you want to scroll like this, it's going to wobble pretty badly. Now, even with a case on it, it does the same thing. You'll see the case wobbles the exact same way, so that doesn't really fix the issue whatsoever. So you would want a case that maybe flattens this out if that's something that bothers you, so just keep that in mind. Also, something we don't get this year is the tabletop mode with this particular device, where if maybe you fold it halfway, while it will typically hold, you won't get those modes. So if we go into YouTube, for example, then we bring it full screen, let's rotate it here, and then bring it up, we don't get the tabletop mode. So that's something you don't get. While it will hold at about a 90-degree angle, you can't angle it at all. It will just fall back. So again, if you bring it this way, you can't see it. But then if you go past 90 degrees, it doesn't really hold. It will start to sort of fall back and then eventually open. As you can see here, there we go. So there is no tabletop mode, unfortunately, and that may be a downside for some people. One of the other bad things or negatives about the Z Fold 8 is the speaker placement is on the left-hand side only. This is something you can get used to, but you're basically hearing audio from the left-hand side. You have a speaker here on the top, you have one on the bottom, and when you're playing audio, or maybe a game or something else, all of your audio is going to come from this side of the device. So if we press play here, you can't tell that it's from the left-hand side, but it's only on the left-hand side of the device. Now, if you're using the Galaxy Buds 4 Pro, that makes it fine, of course. If you're using headphones, you'll have stereo audio. But again, if you're using it without that, you won't have that audio coming from both sides unless you hold it this way, which is not ideal, of course, because then you're missing out the point of having this larger display. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's not the end of the world, but it is something that I noticed that you don't have on the other one because of the way you hold the screen. So on the Z Fold 7 Ultra and the Z Fold 8 Ultra, if you open this up, and then maybe you're holding it in widescreen mode, you've got audio from the left and the right because of the speaker placement. Again, you don't get that on the Z Fold 8. Now, also when it comes to the speakers, they sound okay, but they're not incredible. But let's go ahead and take a listen, and I'll show you how loud they are as well. The audio is pretty decent. Of course, it's coming from the left-hand side, but I saw up to 91 decibels as far as the peak volume level. It sounds okay at the highest volume, so they really haven't had any issues with the speakers there. Sometimes they get muddy and things like that at the highest volume levels. But if you want the better sound, of course, I would go with the Galaxy Buds 4 Pro. I've been using these since they released. They're my favorite portable headphones or earbuds when you're on a plane, things like that. I really like the sound. I like that you can use an EQ, adjust it how you like. And again, typically you can add these in with your bundle. Sometimes they'll give you enough credit to include those for free. And there's incredible trade-ins as well for this. So I'll link that in the description below if you want to check that out. But again, these are my favorite, and I use these typically on a plane when I was traveling back and forth picking up the Z Fold 8. They're just really great headphones, and they do the job much better than the speakers here do. Now, when it comes to the display, we also have PWM. This is something you may have seen on different people recording the display. If you don't set the shutter speed properly, you'll see lines through it. But if we measure this, maybe with slow motion video. Now, as far as the display goes with PWM, or the way it controls brightness, flickering the display faster or slower, it does seem to have it. You may have seen it in different videos if the shutter speed wasn't set properly. You're not seeing it now. And under slow motion, you don't see it as well at 240 frames per second. However, if I change the shutter speed, you'll see it here. Or at 30 degrees shutter angle, you'll see that it's sort of scrolling, controlling brightness that way. And that's completely normal. If I turn the device up, it can change the way it's actually scrolling, but generally it has PWM, and if you're sensitive to that, this could bother you. However, as someone who is sensitive to that, where it causes eye strain, headaches, and sometimes even the feeling of nausea, this display doesn't seem to do that as severely as some of the older ones. So they may have increased the PWM rate. I don't have the equipment to test that, but let me know if you'd like more detail on that. And then the final negative thing is really that the price is just steep. Of course, that's what you get with all folding phones. You'll see here with the Z Fold 8, you can start at $1,899.99, go up to $2,499.99, and that's quite expensive. However, they do have some great trade-in deals where you can get over $1,000 with trade-in and additional credits. So again, I'll link that in the description below. But other than that, if you can get past the price, everything else is quite good. I think my least favorite thing about the entire Z Fold 8 is the mono sound basically out of the left-hand side. So that's something that bothers me. Technically it's stereo, but it sounds more mono because it's on the left hand if you're holding it this way. So that's just something that bothers me personally. Now, if you have this closed, you unlock it, hold it this way and you're watching video, that's not an issue. It's only when the display is open and you're using the larger screen. So that's something to keep in mind. Other than that, I really like this phone and I'll continue to use it as my secondary Android phone, as I'll typically carry two phones with me. So this will be the phone I'm carrying on the Android side for a while. I enjoy the form factor. It gets me through the day without an issue. The performance is great. Apps open fast. Going into my Discord, for example, no real issues here. Everything is just generally fast and smooth. So I highly recommend it. It's something that you've got to try out if you haven't had a folding phone. And of course, we'll probably see something from Apple very soon in a similar form factor. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that compares, but let me know what you're looking most forward to in the comments below and what you think of the Z Fold 8. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.